Hey, what's going on, everybody? You are listening to the College Info Geek podcast. My name is Thomas Frank, and this is a show that helps you become a more effective student. And I gotta warn you up front, this is one of those episodes where the title only refers to a small part of the episode. It is the majority of kind of the meat in this episode, but it is only a small part, and that is because I'm having a conversation with my friend Simon Clark, who is one of my YouTuber friends, and he's also a PhD student in atmospheric physics over at the University of Exeter in the UK. And Simon is one of those people who I can't seem to have a short conversation with. Every time we talk, we end up talking for multiple hours at a time. No matter what I try to do, it ends up happening. It's inevitable. And this episode is no different. So fair warning, we go through a lot of topics in this episode, and it honestly starts off with a bunch of off-topic stuff. We talk about camera gear and Pokemon and all sorts of stuff that maybe you might be interested to listen to. But we also get into something that I was really interested in and I wanted to talk to Simon about, which is what life is like at Oxford University. Oxford University is one of the most famous universities in the world. It is actually the second oldest university in the world, having been started back in 1066. The only older university is one in Italy, I believe. And Simon actually graduated from Oxford before moving on to the University of Exeter, and he graduated with a degree in physics. So he has got a bunch of cool stories and just information about what life is like there. And I also wanted to pick his brain about what life is like now as a PhD student. I was curious about the workload, the kind of work he does, the kind of split between academic work and more like worky work that feels like a job. So we're going to talk about that in this episode among little pockets of totally off-topic fun discussion. So this isn't one of those ridiculously info-packed episodes, but fear not, because Martin and I have a series of episodes coming in the next few weeks that is going to hit you in the face like a ton of bricks with information. So this episode is a little bit of like a fun breather before that series starts. So show notes are over at cigpodcast.com. Find the episode 108 link on the page, and you'll find all the resources we talk about, including links over to Simon's YouTube channel, because like I said, Simon is one of my YouTuber friends, and he was actually one of the first people I started following when I started my channel, because he was one of the only people that I found on YouTube who was doing really good content on how to study. And I'm going to link to a few of those videos in the show notes so you can check them out. He also has a series of videos on his channel that is dedicated to helping people get into Oxford University, because as he explains in this conversation, there's kind of like a stigma that not everyone gets to go to Oxford University, and what he wants to kind of let people know is that it really is based on your merits and your ability to work hard, and his channel is kind of just dedicated to getting that information out there and helping people go through the process, which I really respect. So that's all I've got for this intro. Definitely check out the show notes if you want to check out Simon's channel and his work, or any of the other things that we talk about in the episode. And other than that, hopefully you enjoy the conversation. Simon, welcome to the show.
Tom, thank you for having me.
What's going on, dude? So, yeah, I wanted to talk to you about like a bunch of things, because you have like a bunch of interesting things about you. So I have no idea what I'm call this episode. But to recap, for people who don't know you from your YouTube channel, which is awesome.
Thank you.
You're a YouTuber and a PhD student.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
It
I
feels
watch
like
all
I'm
your vlogs where you're like presenting all this crazy weather research that makes you look like Storm or something, like you're going to control the weather. And then
I never thought of it like that. Yeah, I'm basically like Storm from the X-Men.
Pretty much.
I always thought it was like she could use that power so much better. Like I felt like she wasn't using that to the best of her abilities.
She could. Oh, to get real nerdy on you for a second. So I don't know about Storm, but you know how like Iceman always kind of seemed like a sort of not lame, but like not that powerful X-Men? Because
it's like a poor cousin to Storm. It's like, oh, you can do that. That's cute. I can do all the other elements.
Okay, but as time went on, like the X-Men comic writers started to think a little bit more about the science of the powers they had just willy-nilly made up. And then they were like, Iceman is pulling moisture from the air and making ice. He's actually violating the laws of thermodynamics and making state changes in matter, which means he's creating energy or destroying energy. So actually he's like one of the most powerful.
Oh, okay. They retconned him to account
something like
for
that.
physics.
So I haven't read the comics yet, like, but apparently in the newer ones, he's like Omega level mutant because he's figured out how to use that part of his power in much more creative ways. I'm like,
Yeah, the power where he can break the laws of physics, like, really spectacularly.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
The second law of thermodynamics is like the most important law in the universe. And if you can break that, you're kind of powerful.
What was the second one again? Is that the one about entropy?
Entropy always increases. Basically, the two laws of thermodynamics that matter, the first one determines energy flow, the fact that energy is not created or destroyed. And the second law determines the flow, like the direction.
That's right, yeah. I read that the second law of thermodynamics isn't concrete, it is just probabilistic, meaning that entropy could in theory decrease, but it just, in all observable instances, and it's basically like 99 to the 9 repeating probability that it will.
I think well, there's basically different definitions of entropy. Like there is a statistical definition of entropy, and then there are other. Well, I suppose any thermodynamic relation at the end of the day is a statistical thing. Like temperature is a statistical average over just an inhumanly not large number of particles.
Yeah.
So, which is one of the links between like classical and quantum physics, with people pointing out, well, actually, like classical physics is probabilistic. It's just that the probabilities are one, basically,
right,
because you're summing over so many possibilities. Sorry, we got really nerdy. Like really, we're like 5 minutes in.
PhD students, everybody.
Sorry, we're kind of intense. Sorry, I'll let you talk. Sorry.
See, but I'm not a PhD student, and I can get into this stuff. So my thinking is there's like 6 people still listening. And they're into
hi,
it.
The 6 of you. My mum is probably one of them. Hi, mum.
Is your mom a PhD?
No one in my family's been to university, actually. I'm
really?
reversed.
So yeah. You're what we call a first gen.
Oh, first gen. Well, that makes me sound like a rare
like a Charmander
or something.
Yeah.
Charmander was the first Pokemon card I ever got, funnily enough.
Was
first
it?
gen and my very first.
I don't remember.
I was 11 years old.
I don't remember the first Pokemon card I got, but it was definitely the Pokemon that I picked in Pokemon Blue when I got it at 8 years old.
Yeah, well, my first gen game, I got Yellow, so I had Pikachu.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And then, but afterwards, when I bought Red, not that long ago, actually, and I always go for Charmander because the first gym is water-based, so once you get over that hurdle, you're set. We're so nerdy.
Wait, the first gym is rock-based.
I thought the first gym was water.
Nah, dude, it's Brock and then Misty, and then Colonel whatever is, or Lieutenant
Surge.
Lieutenant Surge, yeah, and then Erica, and then Sabrina, and then Koga, and then Blaine, and then Giovanni. Get it right, man.
Oh, I feel I've been schooled. I'm going to stay away from all geeky topics from now.
I only know Gen 1 stuff. If you ask me anything about Gen 2 onward, like people are just going to realize that I am horribly just like I'm one of those Gen 1 purists.
Yeah, I played Crystal and that was it.
Oh, okay, yeah. I feel like I turned Crystal on for a while, and I played Silver for a little bit, but I just never finished them. I think I was getting out of my Pokemon phase when those games came out, so I have nothing against the later gens. I just never played them, so don't yell at me.
Yeah, like I've got friends who've played every single one and loved them, and they're still in the zone. And it's like I kind of envy them in a way. I wish I could still have the enthusiasm I had about Gen 1.
I know, right?
Can't.
My roommate does that. He's super into it. In fact, he gets his Spanish practice by watching the new Pokemon. He just watches it in Spanish, yeah, and like it's basically helping him become even more fluent. So
no such thing as fluency, though. My girlfriend's living in Spain at the moment. Actually, she's a languages student, and I keep telling her that you're fluent by now, and she just keeps beating me with this idea that there's no such thing as fluency. Like we're not fluent in English because there's still obscure words that we don't know. We get our grammar wrong all the time.
Well,
it's just the fact that it's expected.
I think there's such a thing as fluency. There's just no such thing as perfect fluency. Because
it's a concept, like it's like infinity. You can have extremely high numbers that are to all intents and purposes infinite, but they're not infinite.
I mean, a
like
language is just an arbitrary set of agreed upon communication terms, but within any language you've got people who are like, oh, like my girlfriend and I have a word that we made up that we use because
cool. What is it? What's the definition?
It's fwant. Because
Flaunt.
A lot of times,
how do you spell that?
F. It's the word want, but the word F isn't, or the letter F is in front of it. Because often we'll be like, I really want a motorcycle, and it's like you don't actually want a motorcycle. You don't want to go through all the stuff to get it. But if one just popped into existence and you could write it, and then it would pop out of existence, like that's kind of it's like a fake want. So like sometimes we'll be like, I want that, but I don't want it.
There was a similar discussion on the most recent Hello Internet podcast, actually. I don't know if you listen to Hello Internet.
I do, but I have not listened to the last 2. I'm kind of behind.
Okay, so that they in the most recent one they talk about I think they called it's between want and need. And like the Apple Watch for some people is like it's not a need item. You don't need it in the same way as you need oxygen, but they call it a weed. Like I weed the Apple Watch.
I want it, but dude, it would totally like make me more productive. Like I kind of need it, not really, but I kind of. I have an Apple Watch. I like it. I don't need it.
Actually, the guy who sits next to me has an Apple Watch, and I'm a little bit jealous because it's like I don't. Did you ever play the Time Splitters games?
Yeah, Time Splitters 2 is my jam, dude.
Yeah, that was the best multiplayer on any game. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it's like the best first-person shooter multiplayer game ever made.
But I don't know if you remember Time Splitters 3. Cortez had like actually it might have been it wasn't in 2. It was in 3. He had like the wrist-based inventory system.
Oh yeah.
Like that's basically the Apple Watch. Like, if you can get Google Maps up, that is basically like, your inventory in a game.
Honestly, the value proposition for the Apple Watch is you feel like you're in Star Trek. Like when you talk to somebody on your wrist, you're like, this is the future right now, actually. I mean, I get the most out of the health and fitness stuff, but just other things really cool too.
That's made me want one now. I'd not thought of it from the Star Trek angle, but that if you could make it like the next generation communicator, so it's on like your chest, touch it to talk to people, I'd be down for that. I'd pay good money for that.
That would be amazing. Honestly, at this point, because we're far enough into 2016, I would almost wait till the second one for you. Like I bought mine last fall, so I was like, it's probably going to be like at least a year until they announce the second one, and then I realized that I've wasted money. But I just have this feeling like we're getting close to a Watch 2, and I'm really hoping they're going to shore up some of the problems.
This is actually what they were talking about in the most recent Hello Internet, actually, was the fact that they haven't released one yet. So I won't ruin the discussion.
That they didn't announce one at WWDC.
Well, I think basically there just hasn't been the uptake. Like people haven't been as interested as they have seen in the past with their flagship items like the iPad and the iPhone. Like it's just been a bit, well, I mean, just not very desirable, I guess. Glamorous and cool, but like for the price point and considering the fact that it does the job of a watch which you can buy very cheaply. Yeah, I can understand why people aren't interested, to be honest.
There's hardly anything that it does that I'm like, this thing does something nothing else could do for me. Like the exercise stuff, I see a lot of people with Fitbits, and like that's, I don't know how much it doesn't cost very much. It tracks your steps and everything. So it's like it does the Fitbit thing really well, and then everything else you could just pull your phone out of your pocket and spend an extra 10 seconds. Yeah. So that's why I say like for most people it's not really that useful, but I enjoy having it. And it makes logging into two-factor auth sites a lot easier.
Okay. I mean, I'd enjoy it if I owned it, definitely, but I'd rather spend the money on like a new microphone because I'm a massive geek.
I may be buying a new microphone soon.
Oh, really? Should we talk deets, or is that too geeky even for this?
Okay, I feel like I've just been steadily like overthinking my mic placement in my videos. I don't know. All I know is like somebody in a comment recently was like, you have too much sibilance on your microphone, and the reason is you have your microphone too far away for what this model is, which is a podcasting microphone. It's a vocals microphone. You're supposed to eat it basically. And
is it like a Shure? Oh no, it's a Sennheiser, isn't it?
It's a Shure. Yeah, it's a Shure SM7B. It's the mic that Michael Jackson recorded Thriller on. Amazing microphone. And the way I used to film my videos is I would have the camera pointing down at me a little bit so the mic could just kind of hide out of frame, but still real close. And then I started experimenting with shots where I was like more of my body is in the frame, which necessitated the mic being further away. And then I had bumped the gain levels up and just got problems, man. So I'm thinking about a shotgun mic.
This is the nature of the game, isn't it? You buy a new piece of kit and then you experiment and then you get it to where you're just happy and then you buy the next bit of kit and change everything you've done. Because I mean, I'm lucky in I was using a Rode VideoMic Pro for my footage.
Yep.
And now I've changed to what I'm recording this on now, which is an NTG2, which is basically, to all intents and purposes, the same. It's just higher quality. So I can use all the tips and tricks that I picked up before. And I feel like I'm pretty happy with boomed microphones now. It's that now getting to the point where I want to do, for example, podcasting stuff or recording vocals for music, which I'm thinking of buying an NT1A, Rode NT1A for.
My friend Chase, he did like this podcaster's like high quality microphone shootout thing where he wanted to compare all these podcasting mics, and then he threw in like this Audio-Technica $150 shotgun microphone, and that was his favorite one for podcasting. So I was like,
these give a great response
damn.
for like. I mean, I record. So I did the video recently on what I sing. I'm a choral scholar, so I sing different stuff every week, and I did a little sort of teaser at the start, and that was just recorded on one microphone. Like, it was the simplest placement, and it makes it sound like you've got about 3 or 4 microphones. Like, I'm absolutely in love with this thing. It's just, and considering I think it was about £150, so what, like $250? Like, the price point's just amazing.
Exchange rate. I may still be coming out this year to the UK, and that's like it's like, oh my gosh, my money is going to be cut in half the moment I land.
Oh. Is that now not secret? Are we allowed to talk about this?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll talk about it. I don't know if it's going to happen yet. I want it to happen, but basically it's just like, hey, if we can get on a panel at Summer in the City, then I have a business reason to come to the UK. And I may also be doing some collab stuff with some UK YouTubers. So if it happens, it happens. I'm a little sad that we haven't figured it out yet and nailed it down, because a couple weeks ago, plane tickets to the UK were $700, and now they're back up to $1,200. So I've got the alerts, and I'm just like waiting. I'm like, all right, please come back down. Please come back down.
Yeah, we'll just play chicken with it, and it'll drop really slowly, and you're just seeing how long you can leave it until
basically
still get a seat.
It's like the opposite of the stock market. You're just like waiting for your stuff to rise. Were you paying attention when the Bitcoin explosion happened?
No, I've not really been a Bitcoiner at all. It's like a part of the internet that I just completely stayed away from.
Yeah, I never mined any Bitcoins. I've never done really anything with them, but I remember, they were just dirt cheap for the longest time, and then for whatever reason, there was like this big speculative boom, and it was up to like $200 per Bitcoin.
Shoot.
And there were some people who became millionaires off that, because they were like the nerds who'd been mining them since 2007. And they were like, sell them off, millionaire. That's
and
crazy.
Then flooded the market and reduced the value of everyone else's Bitcoins.
This is a problem with the speculative bubble. It's really volatile, and some people, they went in, they bought a bunch, and then the next day they were down like $100 per coin, and these people were like devastated, and all this crap is happening. It's like, this is the reason that you get an index fund and you just hold. You just auto invest and hold, because this is what happens. People get all fearful, but now a Bitcoin's like what, $400? So
I don't know. You could quote me any figure, and I would believe it.
all I know is it's pretty high. Actually, it might be $800 per Bitcoin, because there was this computer virus called, I think it was called BitLocker, and it would encrypt all your files, and then you'd have to like pay a ransom of like 2 Bitcoins to get all your files unencrypted. And there's like, there's no way to get rid of it. You got to pay.
I love how high value the commodity is. It's like, in Game of Thrones or something, it's like, you had to pay 2 gold pieces. Like,
I know, right?
rather than, it's so much better than like, $1,000. You had to pay 2 pieces. And, are there subunits? Is there like presumably, like, do you get milli Bitcoins, or do you have to trade them in units of 1?
It's units of, well, you don't have to, like, they are infinitely divisible. Like, I have been sent 0.025 BTC from a friend once. I think he had like signed up for some Bitcoin market, and they gave him like a Bitcoin. This was back in the day when it wasn't worth $800, and it was like, hey, invite a friend to join. You can send them a little tiny piece of a Bitcoin. So I have 0.0025 or something like that floating around somewhere that I've never used.
I'll
just wait till 2050 and it'll be worth $1 million. That's what I'm banking. That's my retirement plan right there.
You're looking at it on the hard drive, like,
today it's worth $7. Yes. Anywho.
Yeah. Anyway, we're getting way off topic.
Sometimes I like doing these episodes, the rambly ones. They're fine, because it's my own little Hello Internet, like, wedged into the super productive college podcast. It's like a Trojan horse.
Exactly. Like, rambling is what apparently my mum thinks I'm very good at anyway. I burble a lot and just talk random crap.
Well, we are YouTubers.
It's what we do for a living.
It's basically what we do. Yeah. So the few things I had in mind when I asked you to do an episode with me, though, was like, you went to Oxford, which is cool, and a lot of people are like, Oxford is awesome. And you have like this, I think you have some videos on getting into Oxford. And Jamie does too. Yeah. And that was your channel's kind of original vision, was like getting into Oxford and study tips.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the strange thing about Oxford, and I think a lot of people don't realize this if you don't live in the UK, is that it holds a very unique place in like British society. Like, people have a lot of problems with the way that like British social structure works and the lack of social mobility and the fact that we have still a pretty rigid like class system. The fact that you do have, you know, a quite well-defined middle class of people with quite high incomes. Then you have the upper class people, you know, who own horses and multiple houses and whatnot. And then the normal people, like my background at the bottom rung.
Yeah.
And people associate Oxbridge, so that's Oxford and Cambridge, with the upper and middle classes, like very strongly. And people think that if you didn't go to a private school, you know, if you didn't learn Latin, or if you didn't have family that went to Oxford, you're just not going to get in. And there's a lot of these myths that people believe, and I broke all of them. I mean, as we said, I was the first person in my family to go to university. I come from a completely normal background. My dad, both my parents were military. My dad was in the Navy. My mum was in the Ministry of Defence. You know, I went to a state school, did considerably better than basically anybody who went to a private school, and as a result, I got into Oxbridge. Because the truth of the matter is that they only care about how good you are at your subject and how passionate you are about the subject. So seeing that on the inside, I had this like valuable perspective. So I decided to make YouTube content to try and convince people that that's the case, that all you have to worry about is how good you are, and try and dispel some of these myths. Because there are so many people who are very talented but who just don't apply and get put off because they believe all these myths, so they get put off. They think they won't fit in, and it means people are not wasting their potential, because there's education out there that's just as good as Oxbridge. Really, it's just that it's such a unique environment that people are denying themselves. And that was where I started, was doing a lot of Oxbridge content, and then associated with that doing studying tips to help people get the very top grades. Because that's what you need.
So I'm curious, like, what is it about Oxford and Cambridge, besides the association with the upper classes, that makes it kind of so special, or makes it just so different?
Well, you've got a lot of history, for one thing. I mean, Oxford, no one actually quite knows when Oxford was founded. There's evidence that there was teaching there in 1096 AD.
Holy crap.
It's coming up to its 1,000-year anniversary. And then the earliest college within the university was founded in 1249. And then Cambridge was founded in 1209. So, you know, they're incredibly old institutions, and they have...
So they're like super, like 800-year-old buildings there?
Some of them, yeah. That's the other thing about they're not campus universities. The university is the city, and the city is the university. So you have these university buildings that are scattered throughout the centre of Oxford and the centre of Cambridge, and the fringes as well. So you don't have, like, for example, I'm now a PhD at the University of Exeter, which is a campus, and that was really weird for me. Like the fact that I come on campus and there's all the buildings in one place, and you have a campus, you know, sports centre and cinema and supermarket and all that kind of stuff. At Oxford, you leave your college and then you walk through the city to get to your department, which is, you know, like a 10-minute walk away.
That's actually sort of like there are three big universities, like state universities here in Iowa where I live. I went to Iowa State, which is like your Exeter, very insular campus, and the town is only about the same size as the campus, to be honest. Like, the campus is huge, but then like University of Iowa is more of an Oxford style, where it's just buildings kind of strewn throughout the city.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Though it seems like the way you said it kind of seems like the city is second fiddle to Oxford, almost.
Yeah, I mean, that's more the case in Cambridge, because Cambridge is smaller as a place. It feels like a town. Oxford feels like a city. It's got about 180,000 people in it, so it's not a small place by British standards anyway.
Yeah.
And whereas Cambridge, like, out of term time, when all the students go away, it feels quite dead because the population's dropped by, you know,
that's what Ames is like.
30,000 people.
Which actually, I loved it. The summers I spent in Ames on campus, like, it's just dead and it's cool.
Yeah,
everything's just empty.
Like, you have your own university. So yeah, like, there's that aspect to it. So yeah, you get all these buildings that are different ages, and the confusing thing about Oxbridge is that you have the university, but what you call college, we call university, right? But within Oxford and Cambridge and Durham, another UK university, you have colleges within the university.
So we have that too.
Oh, do you? Oh, okay, I didn't realize.
Yeah,
that.
So there's all these semantic differences, but at least in the US, we have colleges, and they're usually smaller, like private colleges or liberal arts schools, But then we do have the big universities, and at least at mine, and I've heard many others, the departments are they're called colleges. So at Iowa State University, I was in the College of Business, they have the College of Engineering, College of Human Sciences, that kind of stuff.
So that's what that's like here at Exeter.
Okay.
It is different again in Oxbridge then. So the analogy that I like is that, you're admitted to the university and you study a subject. So I study physics. So I, like everybody else in the university who studied physics, did my lectures in the physics department, and I did lab work there, and that was where I handed in my projects and all that kind of stuff. But I was also a member of St. Peter's College, which is like a Hogwarts house in that your college provides your accommodation, there'll be catering. You also have some elements of your teaching are specific to the college. So you have about... The other thing is that they're small. Like, they vary a bit in size, but the average is about 100 students per year per college. So
how many
you will
colleges
know
are there then?
Like 38 colleges, and then there are 6 permanent private halls, which are slightly different. They're like mini colleges for monks.
For monks, okay. So
Yeah,
Oxbridge has monks at them too.
Oh yeah, you'd be walking around the supermarket and there'd just be a dude in like a brown monk's outfit, and you're like, oh, cool.
Really? Okay.
You know, yeah. The permanent private halls were founded by Christian like denominations, and those like the governance of the college of the permanent private halls are still partly down to that denomination, whereas the colleges are separate. So yeah, there are 38 colleges, and they vary a bit. I think the smallest you'd have about like 16 a year. The biggest you'd have like 200, and in Cambridge it's bigger again. Like the Cambridge colleges, there's fewer of them, but they're bigger. But yes, they're small, and then you have your accommodation on site typically, and that can range from being in a 700-year-old building to being in a 10-year-old building, and then you have like a common room. So most colleges have their own gym. Some have their own entertainment things, like their own cinema, like that kind of thing. And then the really cool bit about Oxbridge is the teaching that's specific to the colleges. So you do your lectures, and the exam at the end of the year is set by the department. So that's standardized for everyone.
Okay.
But instead of having, I'm guessing that in your uni you do like classes, that like the lecturers would set a problem set, you'd answer it, you'd submit it. Maybe you'd have classes with groups of like 20 or 30 people like going over it.
Yeah, and then there's also like the huge lectures where there's like 200 people in a class.
Yeah. So basically, the way it works differently for the sciences and the humanities. The sciences, the lecturers was, there's like 200 people in the lectures, and they will give out a problem sheet. Then you have a week to do that problem sheet, but you don't hand it in centrally. You hand it into an academic in your college who's your tutor.
Oh, okay.
And then your tutor will mark it, and you sit down in a tutorial or a tute, and you spend an hour going through the problem set and working for every question. And that might be the case of you got it right, let's extend it, and drawing on a whiteboard saying, what if we had this term, or you got this wrong, let's work through it. And the tutors are like world leading academics. Like I was tutored for atomic physics by the guy who wrote the textbook on atomic physics. Really? Yeah, which is really cool.
So St. Peter's College has its own tutor, and this guy, he is for physics. And then,
well, there are multiple. You'd have 2 or 3 per year. So,
okay.
Yeah, and
now,
they specialize
each of
in
these tutors,
things.
Are they only tutoring one college?
For the sciences, generally, yes.
Okay.
I'll get onto the humanities in a sec. For example, in my 3rd year, I actually had like 4 tutors, and one of them was actually at 2 of them were at the department rather than linked to the college, but they service multiple colleges. So you'd have 2 or 3 tutorials a week, and the cool thing about them is the fact that there's so few people in your college. In my year, there were 4 people doing physics at St. Peter's. So the most I ever had in terms of like student to academic ratio was 4 to 1. Most of the time it was 2 to 1, and then sometimes it was 1-on-1. So like I had a 1-on-1 with the head of astrophysics at Oxford.
That is a lot of attention.
Yeah, that's what like the ability to go through it and like go through the problem and then to push you like that, and also like not just necessarily like writing on a board, but also just like conceptually being like, right, so this question's about this, but what happens if you consider this, and then there's like an awkward silence, and then somebody says something, and then you get discussion going. Okay, and that's really cool. That is just it makes you grow academically so much.
Yeah.
So. And in terms of the workload, you'd have, you'd have about 10 hours of lectures a week, In physics, you then do about 7 hours of labs every week. You then do 2 or 3 hours of tutorials every week. But for every hour in a tutorial, you're expected to do 10 hours of work on your own. So
10
it
hours?
adds up. Yeah.
So
it adds up to
2
a lot.
hours of tutorial, so it's like 17 plus. So you're basically doing like, it's like a full-time job, basically.
Yeah. So students at Oxford aren't allowed to have jobs. When you sign to your
Really?
college, you're not allowed to have a part-time job other than working in your college bar. That's if your college has a student-owned bar, you're allowed to do that.
Okay. So
it's intense.
this is kind of a crazy setup. For one, the drinking age is 21 here, so there's no such thing as an on-campus bar.
Oh, of course, you poor guys. St. Peter's had the best bar in the whole university. It was
Really?
It was just most bars in colleges were owned by like a company, and then you'd wander in and it'd be like kind of like a pub or a bar like anywhere. Whereas St. Peter's, the students owned it and staffed it, and if you requested like a drink, give it a week, they might put it on tap for you. It was
That's
democratically run. Yeah, and you could work behind the bar. But also, like, the feel is just amazing because it's all students. So, for one thing, it was dirt cheap. Like, a pint was £1.60, which in US is like, what,
That's cheap.
$2 and a bit.
Yeah.
So, and we had our own college drink, the Cross Keys, which was a £5 for 6 shots topped up with lemonade, which was amazing. It was like two shots of, it was like Goldschlager, Bacardi, apple sours, it was this amazing drink.
What a college drink, Goldschlager.
Well, because it was the college drink because our college colours were green and gold, and the idea is it was green and they had gold flecks in it.
Yeah.
So a bit like Tywin Lannister's eyes.
You gotta do. Have you ever had Midori?
I don't think I have.
It's this melon liqueur, and I love it because it is the only thing you can get in the U.S. that tastes anything remotely like melon soda in Japan. If you mix it with ginger ale, it basically tastes like the melon soda you can get in Japan, which you can't get in the U.S., which is dumb because Fanta makes it, and they're like a U.S.-based company, but they're like, I guess U.S. people don't want this super delicious melon soda, so we won't sell it here. You guys can just have the orange and the grape. Yeah.
Oh man, so
that'd be a good drink for you guys, green and gold. Goldschlager.
Yeah, it would be. That sounds perfect.
Boom.
So yeah, you got there's the college bar. You got the common room next to it. So we had a college common room for the 300, 400 people in the junior common room, which is the undergraduates. There's also a middle common room for graduate students who are doing PhDs and masters. But in the common room, you have like a pool table, football table, ping pong table, vending machines. We had arcade games that would be rotated in. Huge TV. So when there was like a big sporting event like England playing in the World Cup, the place is just rammed, like totally packed.
Is this one building?
Cool. It's a complex. So you have so St. Peter's is kind of a weird example because it's a newer college. It was only founded in 1961 as a college.
Okay.
And you've got, as part of that, even though the college is that old, you've got Edwardian staircases for accommodation, so they're 1930s. You've got a brand new building. You've also got Linton House, which was the headquarters of the Oxford Canal Company, later repurposed into the college library. Because every college has its own library, as well as there being department libraries and a central library.
This is insane. I need to go here. I just want to experience it, see it.
Like that, and that's the thing. Like the buildings. So Linton House is an example in St. Peter's that looks gorgeous. It basically looks like a hunk of butter that's been carved into this stately home. It's
really
amazing. And then you have the Bodleian, which is the central library, which was built in 1609, I want to say, sometime in the early 1600s. And that's a classic Elizabethan-looking structure. Then you've got people like Christopher Wren, who designed the great St. Paul's Cathedral in London, who designed the Radcliffe Camera, which is the famous circular building, which is the Theology and Law Library, I think.
Okay.
The buildings just look out of this world. And then you've got the new stuff. So they just opened the Mathematical Institute, which is the Andrew Wiles building, which is space age looking. And actually, funnily enough, between the Bodleian, which is 1600s, and the Radcliffe Camera, which is 1700s, they've just built an underground library, which is connecting them. Which looks like if the Victorians designed a spaceship and just landed it underground. It's metal grills everywhere, steampunk. It's so cool.
We'll like be doing some Googling later.
Yeah, sorry. This is it's a very visual topic for a podcast.
Well, it's reminding me of Japan a little bit because Japan is like this or Tokyo specifically. It's like this weird mix of really old temples and stuff, and then like super futuristic new buildings. So I'm kind of just imagining like that, but like a European architecture twist.
Yeah, basically. I mean, if you go on Google Street View in Oxford, for one thing, the street system makes no sense whatsoever.
Really?
Like if you look at a street map of Oxford, there's the modern roads that go in, and then the roads just give up, and it becomes like a bunch of rat's tails.
It's like all cobblestones and stuff.
Oh yeah. The cobblestones all over the place, tiny little alleys that connect everything, and yeah, you go from really really old buildings. I used the oldest building in Oxford to store drums for a concert I was doing. It was this building that was from it was a Saxon building, so it's over 1,000 years old.
Oh man!
Oh yeah, it's a very cool city. When you visit, me and Sally LePage will show you around.
I'm on Google Street View right now. I'm looking at St. Michael's Hall. Is this your thing? I don't know where I am. There's some dumpsters.
St. Michael's Street was the street with the Oxford Union on, which is right next to my college.
I think I was on in an alleyway somewhere.
Oh, okay.
So this sounds like Hogwarts. Did you have a basilisk in your building?
Not that I was aware of. There was an old particle accelerator in the physics building, though.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, like the physics building was a weird one because it was like a 1960s concrete monstrosity, but on the inside. Brutalist? Yeah, like it was like. Also, I think the concrete they used was so low grade that they had stalactites hanging from the building, even though it was only like 50 years old. But yeah, like they had an old particle accelerator. They had a huge like 1,000,000-volt Van de Graaff generator in a tower next to it. Mm-hmm. They built one of the main components of CERN in the LHC in the physics department. I actually went for dinner with the guy who nearly broke it because he messed up a basic physical relation between humidity and temperature, and he almost destroyed this like multi-million-pound sensor.
Oh man!
And just like fixed his mistake and walked away. And just
would have felt pretty bad. Yeah, you gotta give yourself a break sometimes.
So where did we get to? We were talking about. Yeah, it's like a complex of buildings, right? Yeah. So, and that varies. So, like, St. Peter's is a small college in the middle of town. Mm-hmm. Magdalen College, which is where Jamie Miles, another YouTuber, went. That's, I think it might be the biggest in terms of grounds, but they have a deer park as part of their college.
Really?
Yeah. As well as
I experienced a deer park for the first time in Japan.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you go to the city of Nara, which is apparently the original capital. Before it went to Kyoto and then Tokyo, there's just deer everywhere. It's cool. Less a deer park and more a deer town. They just kind of roam. There's like people selling food that you can give to the deer, and the deer are very, very friendly and insistent.
Oh,
give me food.
Because like in Magdalen, they're like they're contained. It is like a paddock. Like it's a big paddock. But
that's
there
not
was
how
a
it's
plot.
like in Nara.
The guy is it TH? I think it was TH Lawrence. No, T Lawrence. He was Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
He went to Jesus College and he was involved in a plot to kidnap one of the deer and bring it back. Because there's college rivalries. There's huge college rivalries.
Yeah.
Like that's one, and then there's these traditions that go back like hundreds of years. Like I can't remember which colleges it is. I think it might be Balliol and Merton, where like 400 years ago, one of the colleges. Their student was being chased by an angry mob from the town, and the other college refused to let him in, so the town killed him. And as payment, the first college, so the second college would send the first college a cask of wine every year, and they still do it, but they poison the wine every year with like a branch of something that's poisonous. I can't remember. It's one of the colleges. I just can't remember which one it is.
And they still do this? Like 400 years later?
Oxford is a place that doesn't change quickly. It's a 1,000-year-old institution. We don't change lightly. Well, we one of the other weird things is that we still take our exams in what we call subfusc, which is our like university robes, basically. So when you do anything official at the university, you wear, for guys, it's a black suit with a white bow tie and a robe, and for girls, it's like a blouse and a skirt and a robe.
Really? So you show up on test day in the robes and take the exam?
Yeah. So everybody, you go in and you look like a horde of people going to like a white tie ball or something. And but the funny thing is, you have to wear it going into the exam hall. You have to wear it leaving the exam hall. But in the middle, you can just take it off. You can just like take your tie off and yeah. And the funny story was there was a guy who he could only tie his tie in front of a mirror. So he went in, fine, took off his tie, did his exam, and wasn't allowed to leave until he could tie his bow tie back up. So,
oh my gosh, are you serious?
Yeah. Again, it's a slow place to change. We're big on our traditions.
So on the channel, I've talked about how it's good to study in the context of what your exam's going to be like. Do you ever just put the robes on, go study in them?
I don't remember ever doing that. I liked putting them on. I always felt like it was like academic armor, like you're getting ready for battle almost.
Yeah, kind of.
Like I really liked the act of doing it, but I don't think I ever did that actually. That's the other weird thing about it. So it's not so bad for the sciences. You don't take any exams throughout your year. At the sciences, you take like 6 modules, and then you take them all at the end of the year. You do like a week of exams, and you're done.
So there's no midterms or anything?
No.
Oh wow. Okay.
Well, you do collections, which are like kind of status report exams. Your tutors, if you do really badly, your tutors will be worried and they'll make you do extra problems, kind of thing. But they don't count. And your first year doesn't count, and then in the sciences, your second, third, and if you're doing one, your fourth year counts towards your final grade. In the humanities, your first year doesn't count, you just have to pass. But then you don't do exams until the end of your degree, and you do all of your modules at once at the end.
You wait like 4 years to do all your exams?
It would be 3.
It'd
be 3 because it's 3 years. But you get people who have like 24 hours of exams in a week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and the humanities students...
I don't know if that's really the best way to do it.
It's not. It's definitely not. Like, there's no point in your life when you're going to be required to do that again. You just have to hold like all of the information you're ever going to know about.
Yeah,
like,
everything you learned in the past 3 years, we're going to have you comprehensively recite all of it right now.
Yeah. And, because it's Oxford, the syllabus is incredibly intense. So
I bet. Actually, I was curious about that. Like, is it a more difficult university across the board than normal?
I can only, actually, that allows me to go back to what I said before. So the tutorial system is different for humanities, right?
Okay.
For the humanities, basically, they have many more options in terms of the modules they pick, as far as I understand it. So if you're doing history, for example, you do like a set of core modules, but then you can choose. And there's like a list of modules, and you choose, I'm going to do the essay on post-colonialism in West Africa or something. But then you don't do your tutorials with someone in your college. You submit your essays to the person in the university who is an expert on that subject. And they could be anywhere.
Really?
So you get really specialized, really specialized, interactions and feedback. And the way that the tute system works is you write a 2,000 word essay, and you're expected to do, I think it's 2,000 word essays every week during term time. And you go through, they'll read it and mark it, give it to you back. But then in the tutorial, you discuss it. And I think Oxford's particularly famous for the humanities. So basically pretty much every prime minister in the UK has done either PPE at Oxford, which is politics, philosophy, and economics, or something similar, or gone to Cambridge. It's got this reputation because you have these like hour-long discussions with world-leading academics, and it gets your thought process. Like it makes you think a lot more, I think, than if you just get an essay back with a mark. And then there's all the other advantages, like you have the best library in the UK. Basically, it's the biggest UK university library. There's I wrote this down before we started. There are 11 million volumes in the university library. Yeah,
we have I think 2 million at the Iowa State Library, and I was like, this must be the biggest library ever. 11 million.
Well, it's in the Bodleian is a UK legal deposit library, so they're entitled to every copy of a book that's published in the UK.
They just get one?
Well, I don't know if they can request one. I don't know if they actually do.
Okay.
But it's basically like a repository for every form of written word. So they have stuff like the Magna Carta, Shakespeare's First Folio, like letters from Jane Austen. It's a huge research library. So yeah, you have that advantage as well, being a humanities student. And in the sciences, the same tutorial argument applies.
Is this all one building?
The Bodleian, no, that's spread across all the college libraries. It's like the 40-odd college libraries.
Okay.
The department libraries. So there's the Radcliffe Science Library, which was the one that I'd spent time in. And then there's the central big buildings like the Bodleian, the new Bodleian, which is just reopened, which has got all their special collections in. The Radcliffe Camera, which has got like special stuff in as well. So it's like spread out. And they also own a salt mine somewhere, which is filled with books. That are rare requests. So if they don't have a book on hand, you can like write on a piece of paper and hand it in, and then they will fetch it for you and bring it back within like 24 hours or something.
Can I go to this library, like without being a student?
You can apply, like you can do tours for one thing, and you can also apply for using it under like certain circumstances. I think.
Gotcha.
But
I know, like
you can
the
go,
library
you
at my
can go
university is open to the public, so you can just go in it.
Well, I mean, because it's such like a huge resource, I guess they have to limit it in some way.
Okay.
But you also get to see it in film because they use it for filming, and Oxford generally is used for filming all the time.
Oh,
like Harry Potter, half of it's in Oxford.
If I come to the UK, let's petition them to let us film in the library.
Oh, we should.
We need to do a video in the Bodleian. This looks amazing.
I mean, my name's known to them.
That's true.
I've got contacts, so I might be able to. We might be able to do something.
Combine our YouTube powers and your contacts, and we'll get permission to film in the Bodleian. That's my new goal right there, bucket list.
We should do it. There's the Humphrey Davy. No, not the Humphrey Davy. No, Duke Humphrey's Library, which is the oldest part, and that's like from the 1400s, I think. And that's this like rare books library where any student can go in, but you can't bring water and you can't bring pens. You're only allowed to use pencils because the stuff's so fragile.
Okay.
They don't want to risk ink getting on it. And then it's basically like I think they might have filmed part of the Hogwarts library in there, but it's like the Hogwarts library basically.
Yeah. Speaking of like super fragile books, I just finished reading a book called The Swerve. And it's about like how the world became modern, and he's kind of talking about like how this 13th or 15th century Italian humanist guy named like Poggio Bracciolini or something found like this old manuscript, and like a lot of the book was like kind of talking about like how basically books for the entire Middle Ages were just locked in dusty monastic libraries falling apart, and then it was going through like basically we had to invent entirely new technologies to figure out what these books said, because if you touched it, it would just crumble into dust essentially.
Yeah, I can imagine that actually. Well, yeah, because you get like the special. You do sometimes see people working on really special stuff. Yeah, and sometimes they're like digitizing it. So I remember watching one guy working when I was doing like a problem set. This guy was next to me, and he had like it looked like a very thick pen, and he was going over this old manuscript, and it was a scanner, like a small scale scanner, but converting it to text as he went, and then like updating it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
They were also saying how like a lot of times they would just scrape off old manuscripts and write over them. So like a lot of things they've recovered have been like scholars just painstakingly trying to make out what the scraped off letters were to figure out what the previous, because they made paper out of calf skin.
Yeah, vellum.
Yeah, vellum, and because apparently I haven't researched this, but apparently they ran out of not parchment, but the other material, papyrus or papyrus or however you. Apparently, like that wasn't available in the Middle Ages, so it was like basically vellum or nothing.
Oh wow! No, I didn't know that. I didn't know that it was that rare a commodity. I knew it was rare, but like it makes. I wonder what happened in the supply chain then, because by the time of the printing press, paper seemed to be plentiful. So there must have been some change in Europe's like supply process that enabled that.
Yeah, and I mean it might have been because the printing press was 1500s, I think, or something like that.
1450 was the Gutenberg printing press.
Okay, yeah, but I think it might have been talking about how, like 900 AD or like 500 or something like that, where it's just this whole chain of monk copying books, and like the book hunters of the 1400s were finding copies of copies of copies of the original things. Like they're not, other than the Pompeii thing, they're not finding the actual things written down by the Romans and Greeks. So. Yeah, which is where these errors creep in. Well, if that's the technological stagnation by people slavishly like following this stuff until like Francis Bacon came up with the scientific method, and people making mistakes. Well, that's like the whole the Holy Grail argument, that it's like San Graal as opposed to San Graal. Actually, like, I don't know about that. Oh, so like there's one of the theories for the idea that the Holy Grail is like a bloodline is that a monk
wrote. I've got to have to get this right around now. I think it's San Greal is Holy Grail.
Okay.
And then he mistyped it, so it went Sang Real, so Holy Blood.
Okay.
And people are saying, come on, it's like a typo. You're basing your entire theory on the fact that there was no autocorrect in like the 900s.
Well, the book was talking about how, some like heads of monasteries or humanist book collectors, they prefer monks who maybe can't even read, because then there's no opportunity for them to think about what they're copying and maybe like make a correction or be like, oh, this needs to be edited
change the
for
meaning,
religious purposes or something. Yeah, it's just like, no, we want people who just copy it entirely verbatim and don't even think about it.
Which is why, one of the reasons why the church, the Catholic Church, developed such a strong position before the development of the printing press, because they're the ones that held all the information in a completely illiterate world.
Yep.
Which is it's just one of these things that's like, this is why you don't concentrate power and don't give people the tools to usurp you. You got to have some kind of restoring force. I read a really interesting book recently called Infinitesimal, which was about the downfall of the Catholic Church and this, if you like, the redistribution of power to the people away from institutions.
Okay.
Which kind of touches on that. I know I did that in my book club video. I have talked about that. I'm so not in touch with what I'm doing on YouTube at the moment. I've got like so many projects on the go.
I think I saw that. Yeah, that you put that out like a month ago on your YouTube.
Yeah, I'm doing another one soon. I read all the Game of Thrones books and I'm going to do a review of them. Yeah.
Nice.
Not recently, like over the past like 10 months.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I do have a friend who read them all in 8 days.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I could see it because I went through the last couple of Mistborn books, which are of similar length and a very short period of time. But that's like wake up, do nothing but read kind of thing.
Well, he was a student at Cambridge, and he was volunteering over the summer at their geological museum. But like that was like 6 hours a day.
Okay.
So then he'd just go home and had nothing to do, so he just read. And he's a monster. He's a reading machine.
Yep.
I just he was one of these guys that read like the last Harry Potter in like 4 hours because he was just he had to plow through it.
I can't read that quickly. My reading speed increases with my interest though. Like if I'm hooked in, I just zoom through it. But the last few books have been, I got like this really scientific nutrition book, and I was just like, I must force myself through every page because it's just literally just mountains of data. That's all the book is, basically.
I had that. I read Paradise Lost by John Milton.
Oh, yeah.
And the interesting thing was, like, it was super good. Like the language is just incomparable. Like, it's just the most beautiful thing you've ever read, but you don't want to read more than like 2 or 3 pages if you're not like a student studying it. And like the analogy I like to make is it's like dark chocolate for your brain. Like in small doses, it's just amazing. But if someone makes you chow down like a full bar, you're not going to enjoy it. You'd have to really push yourself to do it.
I mean, there are just these things that are they're so beautiful and elegant, but they're so intellectually challenging that it is fatiguing to try to understand them. It's like intellectual combat you're going to.
Yeah, I mean, I have a friend who is actually the smartest guy I've ever met, who would always have one casual book, like a Game of Thrones or something, and then one intellectually stimulating book, like a historical novel or like a popular science account or something.
Yeah.
As like a balance. And that's I normally have a few books on the go, but I tend to go through like... Sorry, I just belched. That was disgusting. I go through like basically all them being about the same tone, and then just like the tone shifts slightly. Like I went through at the moment I'm going through quite a historical bent. I accidentally bought a huge book on the history of the Roman Empire, which I'm going to be reading next after reading this book on infinitesimals.
You accidentally bought it?
I was in an airport and I had a book for the trip. And I was like, oh, I really want that. That looks really cool. I could talk about that on my YouTube series.
I have done that. But, and see, yeah, that's the dangerous thing about the YouTube channel is like, oh, that could be a video. That could be a video. All these things are videos.
And then you leave yourself with very little that you do just for yourself.
Oh, I know, dude. It's terrible. I actually got to the point where I was burning myself out because everything... my brain would immediately go like, oh, how could I spin that into a video, or how could I spin that into an article or something, And yeah, you're right. Like there's no breathing room for just like, I'm pursuing this just because I want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, they say, it's a very good thing to follow your passions. You should always just do what you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get to the level that we're doing it, where you're working on like 5 or 6 different projects, like different strands for whatever it is you're doing,
yeah,
it is very tempting to just put everything out there. And in a way, you as a person then start to reflect the public image that you've put out there. Like,
yes,
you kind of see yourself as, oh, I'm the guy that does books and science and singing and basically nothing else. And you worryingly find yourself tending towards that.
Yeah,
you've got to break back and kind of reclaim some hours a week just to do stuff that you enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I have long conversations about this with my roommate because he went through this whole thing where it's like you're just trying to craft this image and you've written your Twitter bio, like that's who you are, right? I even have my hobbies in there, and then you feel this pressure to do that hobby that you said you were going to do instead of just going to whatever it is you feel like doing.
Well, it makes you resist the pull of complexity and resist personal development, because you build time building a brand and then you want to stick to that brand to maintain consistency.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't allow you to involve your interests, and that's something which I've deliberately tried to allow myself to do with my channel. Yeah, it was initially Oxbridge stuff. Now it's it was X to PhD stuff, and now it's science stuff and book stuff. I'm going to be I might be doing some movie stuff. I'm moving house soon to a guy who's like me, is just a colossal film geek.
Oh yeah.
And that might be something I'm doing, but I don't want to pigeonhole myself, and because I didn't want, for example, just make Oxbridge content for the rest of my days, because I'm interested in more than that, and I don't want to become that guy that only does that on YouTube and only thinks about making it for YouTube in real life. Because
exactly.
To quote John Green, the truth resists complexity. Much as you try, you are not going to fit yourself to that mold of being a one variable defined human being. There are going to be so many things that define you, and you got to embrace that. Otherwise, you're just going to go mad. Yeah,
exactly. It seems like your channel is much more just like a "this is my life" channel at this point now.
Yeah, I the way I market it in my head at the moment is it's half an information channel, basically stuff that I find interesting.
Mm-hmm.
This is the feature on, the bit of science that I'm looking at. Or sometimes I just do things like, the singing video I did, or I'm going to be doing one coming up on being vegetarian, stuff like that. But then but they're also having the personal angle. So yeah, doing vlogging when I go on trips, my chapel choir is going to Malta on our tour this year, so I'm going to vlog that and talk about the books I've been reading or the movies I've been watching. It's a hybrid between the two, because I think that in a way is the strength of what I've already built, and that's one thing I don't mind building on, is the personal connection as well. In the same way that you don't do a CGP Grey in that it's just, here's the information, this is what you do. You suffuse your personality into it. It's a 50-50. And then through stuff like this, you have the rest of your personality coming through. All our weird and wonderful traits are allowed to seep out on the internet and through our Twitter and whatnot.
This is why I don't listen to there's one bad review of my podcast on iTunes, and the guy doesn't like it because he's like, a lot of the episodes are just rambling conversations with his friends. I did one episode on how to buy a car, and he's just like, you had 20 minutes where you guys are just discussing what a hot rod is and what's not a hot rod. And I'm like, okay, I get it, but the videos are intentionally crafted to deliver a ton of information in one package, and the podcast is supposed to be meandering conversations, and there's supposed to be episodes that are just kind of not exactly focused on one topic, because I don't know, that's where you kind of have some breathing room.
Well, and also at the end of the day, you make the content that you want to make.
Yeah,
you're not a slave to public opinion. Yeah, it should inform it, but if someone wants to just start a YouTube channel, then the best thing they can do is just to make the content that they want to make.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're forcing yourself to do stuff you don't want to do. And that means you're just going to stop, because you're not going to want to do it.
I might make a video about this, but I don't even know if you noticed this. I didn't make a video for 2 straight weeks.
Yeah,
there were 2 weeks I skipped. And the reason for that is the last 3 videos I did, not counting my vlog, did really well, uncommonly well. And I was looking at my analytics, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's getting close to 1 million views in a month for the first time ever. I need to make more videos, because views and stats and you can just lose your values to the numbers and to the external validation factors if you're not careful. And then it killed my creativity. And I went 2 full weeks with like, oh, the script's not ready yet. I'm just not feeling creative right now. And you got to have fun doing videos. Like, you can't do creative work
it's called second album syndrome, isn't it? Where like a band will make a really popular first album and then they sit back and think, what the hell did we do so right? Like,
yeah. And when I was younger, like the sophomore slump baffled me, because I was like, this band is so good, why are so many sophomore albums bad? It doesn't make sense. These bands are good. But now it makes total sense to me. It's because you get the validation, and then like the reason you're doing what you're doing changes.
Yeah, and if you ignored it, if you lived in a bubble where you didn't have any like feedback, if somebody just came to you and said, you should make another one, people liked it, and you went, oh great, I'll do more of the same. You've developed as an artist to the point where it's not just the same album, but it's more of what made the first one good. Mm-hmm. Like, it's that external validation and feedback can just ruin you. Like,
yeah, and so this is another situation where like it is a complex thing. You can't boil it down to like one simple little aphorism like, don't look at stats or do look at stats, because you know, I get in these moods where I'm like, why can't I just not care about the stats and then effortlessly just kind of like poop out great content? And it's like, no, you really have to wrestle with it. You really have to go back and revise things. Like, there's never like one tip you can take and implement in your life and then make it easy. Like, it's always hard. And I think that's the thing of like, that's been drilled into my head so many times. Like, no matter how successful you get, no matter how good you get, it's always going to be hard. It never becomes easy because you have to constantly challenge yourself.
But I think that's actually one of the key lessons of growing up. Realizing that, but also in parallel, realizing that it was like that for everyone else.
Yes.
And other people still are really successful and do great things. Other people do it, that means you can do it too.
Yeah.
Like, in the same way that when you're growing up, you realize that you don't know what you're doing, but people are looking at you as an adult, and then you realize nobody knows what they're doing.
Nope.
We are all just like careening through life with no clue of what to do next. But some people just get good at masking it. And now
some people are
like
very good at making it look like on the internet they know what they're doing. But it's like, you don't see like the 99% of my life where I'm going, oh God, what's going on? I don't know.
I feel like Twitter is the antidote to that. The fact that people can see our Twitters and us just being like, I have no clue what to do with this video. Like, or in my science, I'm just like, this code is just not working. Like,
yep.
Or, you know, as we found before this, the fact that Ubuntu is just driving me mad, and I apparently am incapable of you know, of operating what basically a child could probably do.
Can I ask you why you're using Ubuntu? I mean, I used it for a while in college, but I gave up on it long ago.
Because I'm an idiot. Because everyone here, when you get to start your PhD, they say, you know, you're going to get a PC because you do a lot of simulations, all that kind of stuff. You need hardware. And they said, oh, what operating system do you want? Most people here use Scientific Linux. So I was like, oh, that's great. I'll have Scientific Linux. That means that I can learn it. It's another feather in my cap. I should have just asked for Windows because I know how Windows works.
Yeah.
And then with my laptop, I was like, oh, Scientific Linux is a bit weird. It's not really like any other distribution. It's really like bizarre. For my laptop, I'll stick with Linux, but I'll get Ubuntu. Should have just asked for Windows because I know how Windows works.
Yeah. Well, do you still use Windows at all then?
Yeah, my home PC.
Is that what you edit all your video on?
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, like, there's no Adobe suite for Ubuntu, you know?
Is there not?
So that's the big thing. I could never use Linux again in my life because there's no Adobe, and that's where I spend like 90% of my time now.
I mean, I use Sony Vegas, and I can't imagine that they'd have Ubuntu support.
I don't think so.
You know, the only thing that I can use Audacity and I can use GIMP, so I can make podcasts and do cool artwork for it, and that's about it.
Yeah, but not so much for the videos. I mean, I'm sure there's a video editor out there for Linux, but
oh yeah, but it'll be one of those crappy ones that's like freeware, and you know, it has all the capabilities, but it's just shit. Like,
yep. It's honestly, like the complexity of the stuff I make now couldn't switch.
Yeah,
just because of the motion graphics stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's actually what's making me think of switching and like learning either Adobe or Final Cut, just to.
Well, you don't use a Mac, do you? Or is your laptop?
No. I use Windows, but my which means I'm limited to Adobe anyway.
Yeah, there's no Final Cut for you. Your options would be like HitFilm, which is good, or Adobe, which is amazing but expensive.
Well, I can get a student license.
That is nice. The student thing is amazing.
But I'd have to learn how to do everything from scratch. And I'm sure that wouldn't take long.
PhD now, how much longer do you have?
I actually had a really cool meeting about this today with my supervisors. I have to finish by the end of September next year.
Oh.
So I have about, well, let's call it a bit over a year.
Okay.
I'm aiming to submit in pretty much a year. So I have a bit of a buffer room. Because the way it works is you write this huge document that's a thesis that's like 200 pages long with all the stuff that you've done over the past couple of years, which realistically means all the stuff you've done over the past year, because the first 3 years were you learning how to do that stuff.
Yeah.
And then you submit, and then you have a viva, which is an oral examination with an expert in the field and someone from university who's like a referee, basically.
Okay.
And that can range from being like 2 hours long to being 7 hours long.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it can be pretty intense. But then, yeah, so there's no formal like written exam or anything.
Yeah.
And at the moment, I'm at the stage where I'm writing my background chapter. So all the stuff that has come before, all the mathematical theory that I'm using. And then I've got a structure for what I'm going to be doing in terms of the new theory, which we've developed, and the results which we're testing. And then there's big blanks in that where results are going to go that we haven't got yet, and also where the theory's going to go that I haven't derived yet. But I know what I'm going to do, I just need to do it. Okay.
So I think we talked a little bit about it in the intro when we went on our comic tangent, but what exactly is your PhD about? Because you undergrad majored in physics, right?
Oh, that's another point. Actually, there's 2 points. Oh boy, I'm going to close the loop first. Right. You asked me if Oxford is a higher level than other universities. I'm going to say yes. Compared to Exeter Physics, for example, I mean, there's nowhere else in the world, as far as I know, that does general relativity in the third year of undergraduate. That's at Oxford. And the problems that they do in fourth year here are like comparable to the lower end problems we did in third year, in relativity at least. It's probably different in other subjects, but
so
in humanities you've got the resources. Sorry?
So Oxford's kind of accelerated then?
Yeah, you come out with more. A degree from Oxbridge is generally speaking worth more than a degree with the same mark from another university. Like,
so why do they call it Oxbridge? Like, are Oxford and Cambridge like sister universities, or what makes them kind of together?
They're both collegiate, as in they both have colleges. They both have the same tutorial system. They're both very old. They both represent the same like position in the social order that I mentioned earlier. They're not linked formally, other than in like research arrangements for like Bletchley Park, where they did the cracking of the Enigma code. That was an Oxford and Cambridge collaboration with other people. But it was mainly those two.
Yeah.
And they're actually mortal enemies, Oxford and Cambridge. Like the Oxbridge rivalry is huge.
Yeah.
Like the boat race, for example. So it's Oxbridge just to link them. And then there's also Durham, and Durham likes to use the term Doxbridge to try and sneak themselves in there. But most people don't use that. And then you made the point about majoring. The other thing which is different in UK universities generally to American universities is we don't major and minor. You pick a subject at the start of university, and that's all you do. So from day one at Oxford to the last day, I just did physics and the maths associated with it.
So you didn't have gen eds?
No. My first year modules were like vectors and calculus, vectors and matrices, multivariate calculus, complex analysis, mechanics, special relativity, electrostatics, circuits, and I think there's another one that I'm forgetting. And it's just hardcore all the way. So 4 years of that means you're going to be at a much further position than 4 years at an American university, because you don't, you've specialized basically from the word go.
Yeah.
You spent the same number of hours, but specialized much more. We don't major. I just did physics.
Now, is that a Oxbridge specific thing, or is that a UK thing?
That's UK all over, apart from a few degree programs where you have like liberal arts and you can choose.
Because that kind of seems like the thing here in America. If you're not going to like a trade school or a community college, like the liberal arts concept is ubiquitous.
Yeah.
I can't think of many places that don't do that.
Cambridge has an interesting caveat, which is they do, instead of doing biology, chemistry, physics, they just do one degree called natural sciences, where in first year you do everything, but then you specialize into your chosen subject as you go.
Okay.
So you could start with natural sciences. I've got a very good friend who did geology as part of natural sciences, and he's now doing a PhD in geology. Or you could do it and specialize in theoretical physics. They do separate the biologists, I think, slightly, but it's that's kind of like the American system.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is basically the same everywhere. Although you do end up sometimes specializing within a subject. So my girlfriend, for example, she's a modern languages student in French and Spanish.
Gotcha. Okay.
I, in my undergraduate, specialized in theoretical and atmospheric physics.
Okay.
So, but my program title, like my degree, is Master of Physics, MPhys. There's no, major associated with it.
So when you graduated from Oxford, you were a master in physics.
Yeah, because I did a 4-year course, so an integrated master's. Most people would do a 3-year course, and then you apply for like a 1 or a 2-year master's, which is, I think, is more similar to what you guys have.
Yeah, we do generally 4 years of undergraduate, where you'd have your bachelor's of science, then you'd go do a master's, which is 1 or 2 years, and then you'd go do a PhD program, and then after that you can do a postdoc if you want. So you did 4 years at Oxford, and then you went straight to Exeter for a PhD?
Yep. Okay. I've just sailed straight through. I didn't want to waste any time getting that degree. And then,
so what's your PhD experience like?
Oh, well, you first asked me what it was on. We should probably...
Okay, yeah. Let's get that
you keep pounding forwards, and I'm like, Tom, I'm dragging you back by like the bottom of your trousers.
I'm like an 8-core processor. I'm opening lots of threads here.
Yeah. Which is no bad thing. No bad thing. So my project it's on atmospheric physics.
Okay.
I'll do like the zooming in approach. It's on atmospheric physics. I am looking at dynamics, which is how explaining how air moves around, rather than like statistically looking at weather patterns. It's looking at the middle atmosphere, so the stratosphere, which is the layer of the atmosphere between 10 and 50 kilometers. And to really drill in exactly what I'm doing, I'm looking at what happens in that layer. There's basically a big spinny like donut of air over the North Pole in winter. It's called the polar vortex. Okay. And when that is very strong, so like there's a really, really strong set of winds, or when it's very, very weak, sometimes it just disappears. I'm looking at how those events affect the weather at the surface and in the troposphere, which is the layer below it that we live in.
Okay. That is pretty specific.
Yeah, so, well, to be more specific, to be more specific, I'm looking at testing a particular hypothesis, which my supervisor had, which I formulated in terms of quasi-geostrophic potential vorticity theory, and then I'm testing it for a hierarchy of of complex models, basically.
Okay, gotcha. This is the point where my brain explodes.
Well, that's almost as far as I've got. Like, there's all the mathematical detail I could show you, but like conceptually that's as far as we've got. And I don't have an answer about how well it performs yet because my bloody code isn't working, and it's really annoying me.
It's Ubuntu's fault, actually.
That's
if you
Python's
switch to
fault.
Windows, okay, it's Python's fault.
I'm running. Oh boy. I actually did a video. I mentioned this. I have a series called PhD Watch where I talk about what I'm doing in the PhD. And the analogy that I have, and I'm going to convert this because you're American, is imagine that in the atmosphere, you can think of wind as being like a variable that's everywhere. Like you have a value of wind that's set to a particular point.
Yeah.
And that's a field. You can think of the distribution of wind as being like the distribution of football players on a gridiron.
Okay.
And associated with the football players, you've got the position of the football. And like the position of the football players determines where the football is because the football player has thrown it. Someone's receiving it. Someone's running with it. In the atmosphere, the wind determines, strictly speaking, by how twisty it is. It defines a variable called potential vorticity. And that's like the football in the atmosphere.
Okay.
What I'm doing in terms of the code is imagine that you just have a blank gridiron, you plonk a football down, you try and invert the position of the football to give you the position of the players.
Okay.
So you'd need like the position of the ball, maybe the speed of the ball, maybe like who's defending, who's in offense, maybe which team's playing, so you know what formation they're likely to be in. And then that's enough information to specify it uniquely. Say, in the atmosphere, if you know the distribution of potential vorticity and you know the boundary conditions, so what's happening at the surface, and if you're doing it, what's happening at the very top, you can determine what the wind's doing. And that's basically what my code's doing. It's reading in a potential vorticity distribution and it's spitting out a wind.
Gotcha. So it sounds like this is like the weather version of ballistics. Where it's like, let's dig this bullet out of the wall and use it to determine exactly like where everyone was in the room and like...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, kind of like that. It's an inversion problem.
Yeah.
And the problem is it's not working because it's quite complicated. It's about 600 lines of Python code, and I'm pretty sure there's one variable that's screwing it up, or a composite of variables. And
you're gonna spend like 10 hours trying to debug it, and then it's just gonna be a semicolon.
Probably.
Except for Python doesn't even use semicolons, does it?
No, it's one of these things where like you have these atmospheric variables that are defined, and you think of them as being smooth, like smoothly varying in height, but often they're not. And like there's a jump, and I think what's happening is there's an instability in like the vertical profile, which is what happens when, say, you have like a jump in the density. The program thinks that the density is like a little bit bigger than it should be at one point, and then that'll cause like an error that then grows and grows throughout the vertical.
Okay.
And yeah, I'll find it because I've got to find it or I won't graduate. But that's what I'm working on at the moment, basically. So yeah, the short answer is I'm writing a lot of computer code and doing a bunch of equations to try and determine how weather in the middle atmosphere over the North Pole affects surface weather. Because it does. It's a problem that, like, depending on what the vortex is doing, you can see storms going further north or south. You can get like the massive outbreak of cold air that was in like 2011 over America, was it? You know, that was the year when like all of America was covered in snow for like a week.
Okay, yeah.
Like that was because there was a very weak polar vortex and loads of cold air spilled downwards.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's the kind of event that like I'm trying to help predict, basically.
Interesting. Okay. So what does it translate to in terms of like a day-to-day experience? Do you take any classes as a PhD, or is it almost like a job?
It's basically like a job. I mean, at Exeter, we have to do 100 hours of taught programs, basically just as development for ourselves. So I took like a class on string theory, and I took a class on statistics and dynamical flows and stuff like that. But that's a very small part of what we do. On a day-to-day existence, I try and get in before 9. I have a desk. I'm in my office at the moment. I realize that it's a podcast, so you can hear my office, but you can't see it. Basically work 9 till, well, nominally 5. I had a conference recently where I was consistently leaving here at about 10 and cycling home.
So you're like doing 13 hours a day?
Yeah, and then it was like the month in the run-up to the conference. I think I took like 3 days off in total, like working weekends.
Yeah.
And then I took some time off. Like I had a really nice holiday in France just afterwards because it's flexi time. Like I can just take time off whenever I want as long as I don't have a commitment or something, and as long as I get the work done.
Right.
I don't have to be here for a certain number of hours. But yeah, I'm basically here at my desk. I've got my laptop, which I write code on. I also have my desktop, which is more powerful for running stuff like simulations for verifying code.
Yeah.
And then we also have a cluster here that I can SSH into and run scripts on. And then
dude, clusters are amazing. During my freshman year, we had access to a cluster, like a supercomputer, basically. And I had a little netbook, and I would just SSH into remote on the cluster and basically turn my netbook into like a super powerful desktop that was only held back by Wi-Fi speed. It was amazing.
No, I actually, funny story, I did, when I was doing my master's project at Oxford, I crashed the entire Oxford atmospheric physics computer network. I overloaded one of their, they had a bunch of supercomputers that were called like Cirrus 1, Cirrus 2, Cirrus 3, and I put so much load on Cirrus 3 that they had these graphs that you could access in browser showing, usage, so you could pick which one you wanted to use.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they just all flatlined. And then everyone in the entire building's computer froze and then crashed.
Oh my gosh.
And I just closed the lid and walked out. And I didn't come back for the next day.
That wasn't me.
I was just stupidly trying to run like a huge matrix inversion, like as part of my project, and I just didn't think about how big it was, and I killed it.
Happens to all of us, man. Happens to all of us.
At some point in our life, it's going to happen to you, dear listener. You are going to have to invert a huge matrix in MATLAB.
I accidentally inverted a huge matrix last week.
It does. It's so embarrassing when it happens in public. So that's like the coding side of things. I work in R and Python. I might be doing a bit of work in Fortran, which is a bit scary.
That's an older language, dang.
Yeah, like it's what a lot of the Met Office, for example, like the huge like climate models are written in Fortran because it's like 0.5% faster. But when you're dealing with such big data sets and like such expensive stuff,
it matters.
Worth it.
Yeah.
And then I also work analytically. So I have logbooks. I'm on logbook number 4 now. These quite chunky books, and then there's also just like pages of working places where you sit down with your basic equations and try and work out results, which you then can test using your code. And then the other big part of it is reading papers. So you've gone beyond the point when you're doing a PhD, beyond the first year of the PhD, where textbooks are your be-all and end-all.
Yeah.
There is an almighty textbook, which is actually written by a guy called Jeff Ballas. He like just wrote this textbook on atmospheric dynamics. That's useful, but then I have a pile next to me of about like 20, 30 papers that are super, super specific on this, like the vortex does this versus the vortex does this. This is what happens at the surface.
Right.
And then, it's like 20 pages on the maths and the analysis of that. So it's like a 3-pronged dragon. It's the coding, it's the maths side of things, and then there's the reading. And then in terms of student life, it's kind of for me it's a lot better than undergrad because I'm not stressed all the time. Like at Oxford, I worked way too hard. I worked myself into the ground.
Yeah.
And
well, it was kind of seeming like my initial thought was that PhD would be super involved and even harder, but it's kind of sounding like it's almost like full-time job hours.
If you treat it like a full-time job, you'll be fine. You'll graduate on time, no problem. If you're super into what you do, and also if you do things like experiments that are time dependent, like if you need to come in and, if you're in biology, you need to feed fish, then you have to come in at random hours.
Sally.
Count a bunch of flies, Sally. I'm so glad I'm doing stuff with code. Code's the same everywhere, at whatever time.
And you can do it at home.
Yeah, it's like, at Oxford, especially when I was doing YouTube stuff at Oxford, I'd like work before 9 until 10, and then I'd edit from like 10 until 2 or 3, and then get up for 9 o'clock lectures.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy. And now here I work from 9 till 5, then edit from like 6 until 12, and then go to sleep.
You mean
so
edit
it's a bit
video?
more reasonable. Yeah. Edit video, or the other big thing I do is I sing in the university chapel choir, so we sing every week, and there's rehearsals for that. Practice. I also do a lot of the social media for that. So at the moment we've got our debut CD coming out. I'm doing the artwork for that. That's a lot of work. And then also I do contract video work for other people, collaborations with other people, stuff like that. And then occasionally I let myself watch a movie or
occasionally
or stuff. I do
like tomorrow. Or wait,
like
today?
Tomorrow.
Well, I'm going tomorrow, but
has it not come out yet for you? Are you talking Civil War?
Today's the release day, but
okay.
I'm going tomorrow because
I was in.
Did you already go? Did you go at midnight?
No. I was in France when it came out, and so all my mates went at midnight.
Oh, okay.
I'm now waiting for somebody to come and see it with. Although I did go and see The Jungle Book the other day on my own. No, not The Jungle Book. Zootropolis. I went to see on my own.
Zootopia is so good.
Yeah, I loved it.
I love that movie.
And The Jungle Book. I really, really liked that. Actually, I was quite surprised.
So wait, were you in France yesterday?
No, it came out here last Thursday.
Really?
Yeah, for some reason we get some movies way sooner than other people.
Well, that's fun. Yeah, today's the release day here. So there's a new theater that's like 20-minute drive from me, and it's reserved seating. They're like cushy recliners, and you can like order beer or like a latte. So I don't go to any other theater ever.
Well,
again.
we have a campus. We have a campus cinema here, which is run by students.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, and it's not a huge cinema. It's like a smaller screen, like a screen room. But because it's students, you get really cool stuff. And if you're a member, it's £1.50 to see a film.
Holy crap!
Yeah, but they only show 2 films a week. But
okay.
it's such good value that I now struggle to justify going and spending, £10 on a ticket at the Odeon or the View.
At Iowa State, they had what they called Cyclone Cinema, which it wasn't current movies, but they did get movies before they came out on DVD. So if you wanted to, you could wait, and it was free, actually. So that was a pretty cool setup, but not a student anymore, can't go to Cyclone Cinema, and can't wait for Civil War. I can't wait for
I
that.
loved The Winter Soldier so much, and like the Russo brothers, everything they touch just seems to turn to gold.
Yeah.
And
we watched it on Monday. I was like, I got to watch it again to prepare. My body is now ready.
Actually, no, because I need to see that, and I need to see a film called Eye in the Sky, which I don't know if it'll be out in America yet.
I haven't even heard of that one.
It's interesting historically because it's Alan Rickman's last film, but it's about a drone operator played by Aaron Paul.
Okay.
And like the ethics of drone warfare.
Yeah.
And it just looks really interesting. Like, there's just a spate of good stuff at the moment. The Zootropia is because it's Zootopia for you, Zootropolis for us. They changed the name for some reason.
Oh, okay. I was wondering why you said Zootropolis.
Yeah, it's I remember a Reddit thread where someone was like, "Why'd you call it Zootropolis?" And it's this British guy, that's what it's called. Like,
I've heard that Captain America is called just the First Avenger in other countries.
I think we had Captain America : the First Avenger.
That's what it is here. But I've heard in some countries they just cut the Captain America and just it's the First Avenger. I don't know what countries, but yeah.
Okay. But there's a lot of good stuff out at the moment. Like this is before the big blockbuster season in the summer, like Star Trek, Independence Day, that kind of stuff. Which I do want to. I'm going to hopefully do videos on the science behind that, which would be really cool, like how to build a warp drive and stuff.
That'd be cool.
And then you got the Hyper Prime now slot in like December with like where Star Wars is released and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, like this is a nice period. This isn't Academy bait, and it's not blockbuster. It's just kind of good but not triple A titles.
Yeah,
like, this is a good time of year for films. I like it.
I'm hoping Civil War is good. I'm very confident that it will be, but I was very let down by Batman v Superman. So
I didn't even bother going to see it. All my friends went to see it and hated it. Yeah, it's
not. I was so sad. I was like, because I like Man of Steel. You know.
Oh, really? You're one of the only people I've heard say that.
It's not a great movie, but I think it has some of the best action sequences I've ever seen. Like it's like the choreography isn't anything amazing, but it's what's his name? Zack Snyder. It's Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
He knows how to make cool action. That's the only reason I like his other movie.
That's the problem. Zack Snyder. Oh, what? Sucker Punch?
Yeah. Sucker Punch has a horrible theatrical cut, but its director's cut is a little better. They definitely cut like all the important things in the theatrical cut. It's not a great movie, but it's if you want some cool action and music and sound design, like it's really cool. So.
It's a film I steer clear of because it just seemed to be so obviously hypersexualized towards like teenage boys. And I know that he claims it's a feminist film, but I personally don't buy that argument in the slightest. 300 is a great film. And
I
think
300.
A much cleverer film than people give it credit for. And I haven't seen Watchmen, but I love the graphic novel, and it seems to be like a shot-for-shot make apart from the Dr. Manhattan switcheroo at the end.
I have Watchmen on my shelf back there. I love Watchmen. I think the ending they replaced is actually better. So
it makes more sense, I think. Like aliens, like...
Yeah, it's better, I think, in the film. Now, people will probably roast me for that. That's fine, but I like it.
Fight us in the comments.
Yes.
But no, Zack Snyder knows how to make great trailers. I actually, just before watching this, I watched the Man of Steel trailer. Because every trailer for a Zack Snyder film, apart from Sucker Punch, I'd argue, looks amazing.
Yeah.
Like, apart from and also the first Batman vs. Superman trailer, that looked trash. But he knows how to like make something catchy in the same way, but... That doesn't mean it's going to be a good film in the same way that you won't take a Vine star and have them make a feature-length film.
That's the thing. And I don't know if you've ever watched Tim and Eric, but I love the Tim and Eric TV show because it's so ridiculous and over the top and there's weird humor. But the movie I can't stand because it's like too much of a good thing. It's eating too many Skittles, basically. And that is what Batman vs. Superman is. It's like this disjointed, like let's shoehorn 3 different... incredibly complex comic book stories into one movie and then let the man who has really no interest in properly representing those movies direct it and just basically do his own vision.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
I mean, it's different from Marvel. It's got that going for it. They're not
if you're
just
still listening,
Marvel.
we're not going to talk about anything else academic.
Yeah, well, I feel like we closed basically all the loops, actually, that you've opened.
I think we did.
We've done the Bruce Willis, Jason Gordon-Levitt of sealing ourselves off.
We did. That was a good movie.
Oh, now that,
I love
and
Cooper.
he's the guy who's directing Rogue One, the new Star Wars episode. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's awesome.
And the trailer for that looks amazing.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that. Star Wars is like the film property that I feel the most attached to, because it was one of the. Everyone has a transformative experience. I think if you see it at an early enough age, and
I luckily saw that early.
Yeah, I saw it at age, I think I was 7. My mum brought home like the special edition box set, which had Darth Vader on the side.
Oh, yeah?
And which is a shame because that meant that I saw Greedo shooting first.
Oh, yeah.
But
My
even
dad
now,
had the
even I'm
original
like,
tapes.
I'm just like, no, that's stupid. Of course Han would shoot first, you know. Like, although I know that it's good in the sense that, you know, they've cleaned up the print and there's a few good edits. There's the terrible edit where when Luke falls from the spire in Bespin, and in the original theatrical cut, he just falls because it's a sense of I can't even, and then just lets go. Whereas I'm gonna have to step back for this, but you know, in like the special edition, he lets go, and there's like half a second of pause, and then you hear Mark Hamill just going ah, and it's like, did he fall? Like, is he because he's only holding on with one hand? Like, it's a terrible edit.
They've done some really bad edits.
Yeah.
I hated how they edited in Jabba the Hutt in the first movie.
Oh yeah,
He shouldn't be there.
did.
You know, in the original cut, it's just like a henchman.
Yeah,
So
there's no need. But
George
yeah,
Lucas.
Star Wars. I'm very attached to it. I'm very attached to the special effects side of it and the sound design side of it because I get ribbed by this so much by my friends. But like, I really notice sound design in movies, and Star Wars is just like that's the real stuff.
Yeah.
Ben Burt.
Dude, that's what YouTube did to me. It made me start noticing like how they do things. I start like looking into visual effects and like I think I know how they did that. And I remember when I was watching Star Wars: The Force Awakens for the second time, I found myself like unconsciously counting cuts, like in the action sequences. I was like, oh, there's a cut there, there's a cut there, and then I would notice like they didn't cut for like a good 20 seconds in this action sequence. Like this is a really cool shot. I think it's the one where I don't remember the pilot guy's name, but they're coming in over
Poe
the
Dameron.
water. Yeah. Poe Dameron's like him and the squadron are coming in over the water, and then like they zoom over the big battlefield. They don't cut for like a good 20 seconds on that shot. And it's just really cool.
There's that amazing looping shot where you know you follow him,
Yeah.
just like being a badass and taking out all these TIE fighters and they say, that's one hell of a pilot, and then you cut to him and it's like, yeah. I suppose I subconsciously do that. I more notice cinematography these days. I watch a lot of cinematography based channels to the point where I'm like, I get a thing pop up in my descriptions and I'm like, oh, which one's this? Like, oh yeah, it's that, you know, it's every frame of painting.
Yeah.
Like that channel Chriswell, Now You See It, Digging Deeper. There's so many good channels about like the visual aspect of filmmaking that now, like, there's the shot in The Force Awakens where they're on the bridge.
Yeah.
Kylo Ren's there, and he's got the light from the star illuminating the bridge.
Yeah.
And then as he makes his decision, the light goes out, and I was just in the cinema like, oh, like,
It's beautiful. Oh, I remember
Oh,
the first time I saw that scene, I was like, this is beautiful. Just set design and
how
and the
many
light
times
and
have you seen it? Do you think?
2 or 3.
Oh, okay. I saw it in
IMAX first, which was sort of cool, but IMAX is always a bit of a toss-up for me, just because the screen's so big, like it can be kind of overwhelming. And then I think I saw it twice in normal cinema.
Okay, yeah, because I saw it. Thanks to you, I actually saw it in 3D IMAX. For those of you that don't know, I went to a conference in San Francisco, and Tom, you Americans don't like people from other countries buying your cinema tickets, so Tom had to buy them for me, and then I had to reimburse him. So I got to see Star Wars on midnight, which is great.
Yeah.
You so I'm forever in your debt for that. Yeah, it was very selfless.
The video you made was so funny. It's like the clouds.
Oh yeah, I forgot I did that.
I was laughing so hard.
And then what I love is the fact that people were trying to guess what the music was as well. And I was like, this is the like the like YouTuber side of things. And then I've got like my little music like homies that are trying to guess the choral choral stuff. So I saw it in IMAX 3D, and then I saw it with my parents in normal, and then I saw it here again in normal, and then I might be seeing it for a 4th time. They're doing an outdoor screening at a pub in the evening this summer, and then I bought it on. Yeah, there's a really lush pub, like about a half-hour walk outside of Exeter. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere, but they have a huge grounds. They put up a massive screen. And they do outdoor screenings of films.
Yeah.
So I might see it there, and then I've also bought it on Google Movies. So I've watched it, and actually, no, I haven't watched it all the way through. I've watched selected bits, and I've watched all the special features because they're amazing.
Well, there you go, man. Star Wars
Bit of a fan.
That is what we are. Yeah, we're not as nerdy as the Hello Internet people, but like
I don't know. I think
Brady,
we're giving them a pretty decent run for their money.
We haven't yet set up a charity screening of Star Wars at a zoo with the guy who played Darth Vader in attendance yet. So once we can do that, or we got to do the new school version.
Which episode was that? I missed that one.
You missed it?
Yeah, I think I skipped like 5 episodes in the middle.
Oh, okay,
maybe.
I started at the beginning and I listened to everything all the way through. And yeah, at one point they did this. I think Brady had gotten it set up with the director of the Bristol Zoo, I think.
So it was David Prowse.
Had David
Vader.
Prowse there. Yeah. So basically, they set up this event. They auctioned off tickets to the Hello Internet audience. Like people flew in from like India to go watch Star Wars with David Prowse at the zoo. So
that's my hometown. Bristol is where I'm from, actually. So
really?
I shouldn't be surprised by how awesome it is.
Yep. Yeah. So they're pretty nerdy with their Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, it's true. We need to do something similar. Well, we need to think of a massive geeky project to get the gears going. Except I have enough projects as it is. I actually had to write a list the other day of all the stuff that's going on because I completely lost track of everything.
We'll let you graduate so you can finish your 200-page dissertation thing and your code, and then we'll figure out some real nerdy thing.
Yeah.
I mean, besides the video in the library, because I want to do that now. That would be the coolest thing ever.
Once we know you're coming, we'll pull some strings and we'll get that done for sure.
Yes. All right. You think we should wrap it here?
We've been going for 90 minutes, and I think probably only my mum is listening now.
Yeah, at that point. I'm going to put something in the intro. Be like, all right, here's the like 25 minutes to like 50 minutes is where the stuff is. Other than that, Star Wars, Pokemon,
Yeah, we covered a lot of the big nerdy bases in this, I feel.
We really did.
Nailed our colors to the mast.
So now for a 2-hour discussion on D&D. No,
finally. I was waiting for you to say this. No, stop. I've got to film a video at some point tonight.
All right, dude. Yeah, actually, Martin and I have to wrap up an episode because we, spoilers for anybody still listening, next week's episode is going to be the start of our How to Get Into College series.
Ooh.
We were going to do one episode on it, and then I sat down this morning to write the outline, and I was like, I can't fit this in one episode. We're going to do 3. So we're pulling a Hobbit on that one.
Oh no, what are you doing? Don't be the next George Lucas.
I'm the George Lucas of college podcasts.
That is not a thing to be proud of.
There's nobody else doing college podcasts, so I can
is this the only one? Is this a world exclusive?
It's not the only college podcast, but most of the other active college podcasts out there are kind of focused on parents. Like a lot of them don't speak directly to the student. And most of them that are sizable kind of focus on the getting in and the prep aspect. There's not a whole lot that do the university experience and the studying and all that in the podcast realm. I anticipate that will change.
Missing.
Huh?
And that's just as you said, that's something that's missing from the discourse. It's one of the reasons why I started doing what I did on YouTube because, apart from all the social factors and everything I talked about before, you get prospectuses and websites that tell you, this is what you're going to be doing. There are these resources, these buildings, whatever. There's nothing that actually tells you what your life is going to be like on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And that's what I started doing. I just vlogged every week because I think that's the most impressive, the most effective way of communicating to people that, look, this is a normal place. Well, it's not a normal place, but the people here are normal. You don't have to speak Latin all the time. It's just basically like any university. It's just a bit weird.
Yeah.
And that boots on the ground perspective is something that I'm really big on. And, I carried that on with the Oxvlog project, the YouTube channel that's a collaborative project between Oxford students.
I think that and Jake Wright's channel are both just really good kind of perspectives.
I think they're necessary perspectives, honestly, because it's still it's ongoing. It's an ongoing issue with people believing all these myths about Oxbridge, and I still get messages from people saying they wouldn't have applied if it wasn't for me, and that they got in. They'll buy me a drink if I go to Oxford. And, if I still get messages like that, which are lovely, it means that my job's not done. I need to keep doing it until everybody knows exactly what life there is like and believes that they can get in. Because they can, if they're smart enough.
Yeah. So, dude, if people want to watch your videos or stalk you online, which of course they do, where should they go?
So my YouTube channel is youtube.com/Simon Oxfizz. That's Simon Oxford, OXF. Phys, Phys. It's a stupid name. I don't know why I put that F in there. It confuses everybody. That's my YouTube. And then I'm Simon Oxfizz on Twitter. I'm YouTube Simon on Facebook. I now have Goodreads because I started doing book reviews.
Sweet.
I just started with that, so it's quite a nascent profile. But I'm doing a series with starting a book club quite soon, actually, hopefully, where we're going to be like setting a book to read, and then in 6 weeks or 4 weeks, we'll do a video talking about the book and have a discussion in the comments. So that's what the Goodreads is going to be for.
That's awesome.
I'm really looking
kind of
forward
on
to
the podcast here.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
And it's not like an official book club, and we don't even tell people what to read in advance. But it's just like,
so it's not a book club at all.
Well, okay, so we have been reading books and doing episodes discussing them, and in the most recent one, we were like, hey, do you guys want us to warn you before we do a book so you can read it in advance? So we're basically waiting for the first person to be like, yes, I care.
Okay. That's the Goodreads stuff, and then I'm on Instagram, and I think that's all of the stalking that you can do. I feel like I have a social media empire by this point. The sun never sets on it, but it's a very small empire compared to yours. I'm like you're the British Empire in the 19th century, and I'm the British Empire now.
I have what do they call that? The Commonwealth.
Yeah, but there is still the Commonwealth. It's just the fact that Britain owned all those countries then.
That's right.
And then they peacefully I think almost every single one was a peaceful leaving the empire. It was like a democratic process.
Except for us.
Yeah, come on. Yay, the British Empire. We may have killed and burned and stolen basically all of your cultural artifacts, but we let you leave in peace.
We gave it back.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'll actually say completely bloodless. I completely forgot, about America.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're the ones that didn't peacefully do it. Like Canada was like, we'll be diplomatic about it, and we're just like, we don't want you to tax our whiskey.
No, that was you guys. The whiskey tax was you guys, wasn't it? That was the Democratic Republicans in the South versus Hamilton.
Okay, so maybe my history is wrong, but I had read that I think the empire wanted to tax the import of rum or whiskey or something, and that was kind of like the first point of contention where the Americans were just like, no. And then there was the Stamp Act, which was like the next one. Yeah. And then you get the Boston Tea Party and then war.
Because I've been listening to a lot of Hamilton recently.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that there was a whiskey tax on the South, because the South had a large part of the revenue was from whiskey, and that was the cause of I think it was the third presidency, whichever one it was. This is your country. I don't know.
The third president was Jefferson.
Yeah. Oh no, it was one before Jefferson.
So are you thinking of there was a whiskey rebellion?
Yes.
But what I'm talking about is this is before the Revolutionary War happened, before the Declaration of Independence, even before the Stamp Act. There was a
whiskey tax.
There was either a whiskey tax or a rum tax, because rum was huge, and that was kind of like one of the first acts of rebellion. And then we had the Stamp Act, and then it was kind of what led to it. Yeah, I read about this in a book called The History of the World in 6 Glasses, which was about the development of drinks.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was actually pretty cool. It was like world history from the perspective of the development of beer, then wine, then distilled liquors, the coffee, tea, and then Coca-Cola. And I think it was when they were talking in the distilled liquors chapter, was talking about the American Revolution was the kind of the flames that stoked the fire was Americans liked their distilled liquor and didn't want to pay more than they had to for it. So,
that's so good. I had no idea about that.
Yeah,
I'm making a note of that.
I'll put that on the show notes as well. It's a pretty quick read. The guy also wrote a history of the telegraph, which is a pretty cool book too.
Cool. Yeah. Well, to be honest, given the state of American politics at the moment, you can have it. We are very glad that you guys decided to walk away.
The circus of American politics.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Great talking to you. Hopefully, I don't know, one person's still listening at this point.
Hello, Mom.
Hi, other mom. Yeah, I think we'll just cut it here. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, well, that about does it for this episode. If you are still listening, if you're still like one of those 6 people who stuck around, thank you so much for listening to the end here, and hopefully you found it useful. Once again, you can find those show notes over at cigpodcast.com. Find the episode 108 link, and you'll find all the resources and ways that you can rate and review the show on iTunes. And if you want to take a few minutes to help out the show, that is definitely a good way to do it. Rankings on iTunes get bumped up whenever somebody leaves a new rating and review. So if you enjoy the show, I would highly appreciate if you could do that. Other than that, that is all I got for this episode. So next week, like I said, Martin and I are going to hit you with a ton of information. We're doing a 3-part series on getting into college. We're going to be talking about the application process, finances, and how to become college ready, how to basically act like an adult and handle all the personal responsibility that comes from getting out from under your parents' wing and moving into your college career. So look forward to that. And otherwise, stay cute. See you next week.